Jailton Almeida stays perfect in the UFC. His second UFC main event is successful as he defeats the Black Beast himself, Derrick Lewis, by unanimous decision in his home country of Brazil, UFC Sao Paulo. Now, it wasn't the most action packed fight, but there are takeaways and there are things to discuss as we get into 2024 for the UFC heavyweight division. Going into the fight, Jailton Almeida was a minus 470 favorite, and coming out of the fight, he looked every bit of that number for sure. I believe the final tally was around 120 strikes landed to 28 in favor of Almeida, 6 takedowns to 0 in favor of Almeida, and 21 minutes. You heard that right. 21 minutes of control time for Almeida in a 25-minute fight. Say what you will about this one, right? It wasn't the most fan-friendly. It wasn't the most, action-packed, as I said off the top. It wasn't a huge takeaway spot for Almeida in terms of what we saw in the cage. But you could almost counter-argue that, at least, I think, too, because for Almeida to showcase that he can just stay on top of someone like Derrick Lewis, the man that is known for just getting up underneath of guys that are so good in this division with their wrestling and jiu-jitsu, if you will. Not many are to the caliber of Almeida, but Derrick Lewis has always been able to just get up and prove these situations wrong and get wins in a lot of these hard stylistic fights for him on paper. That was not the case in this one. I feel like people are going to rag on Almeida because he didn't get a finish, right? And I understand that argument. I've made that argument against people, prospects like Muhammad Mokaev, maybe just not pulling the trigger as early as I wish he would have, making it a little bit harder than I feel like he needed it to be. So that is a completely fair thing to hold over Almeida here, because now at 6-0 in the UFC, 3 prominent victories, escalating each time now at heavyweight: Shamil Abdurakhimov, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, which was Almeida's first main event slot, and now Derrick Lewis here in his second main event. You're a player. You are relevant. You are going to be in talks amongst the top contenders at heavyweight. That's just the fact of the matter. He was number 9 going into this. Come Tuesday, I don't know if they will let him kind of bump up at all from this victory. I wouldn't be surprised if he stayed where he is. I also wouldn't be surprised if he bumped up to, 6, 7, or 8. He calls afterward for a fight with Cyril Gane. That's definitely a big jump up for sure. Let's take a look here at these rankings and just get an idea. We have to just talk the specifics of the heavyweight division right now after last night. So again, this was number 9 Almeida versus number 10 Lewis. Almeida wins here. He calls out number 1 ranked Cyril Gane. Cyril Gane coming off of a victory in Paris against Sergey Spivak, where he just had a masterful performance, a near perfect return for him after losing in March to John Jones in the heavyweight title fight. Now, 1 week from yesterday, 6 days at the time I'm recording this, is when we are getting the interim heavyweight title fight between Tom Aspinall, who is number 4, and Sergey Pavlovich, who is ranked number 2. The winner of that will be the interim champion. John Jones out around 8 months, I believe Dana said, with the torn pectoral muscle. Stipe Miocic on vacation. He got into training camp mode. His physique was looking good. Now he's on the beach instead of fighting in Madison Square Garden next week. I don't know where Stipe falls into everything, because it seems the UFC is wanting to keep that fight alive, right? Stipe versus John sometime in 2024, which is a little weird, because why are we doing an interim title fight then this weekend? Why isn't it just like a number 1 contender fight? Interim titles, it goes a long way on this show, the history of the show. Noah especially hated interim title fights. A lot of the times I was with him in that boat. This one is weird, but again, when you have a champion that's out for 8 months, it is, a realistic thing to do. If not, just have it vacated, but they don't want to take the belt away from John. I understand that. I get it from a business perspective, right? So Jailton gets a big win. Maybe not as flashy as some would have liked, even myself. I thought he was going to that's where it gets hard for me. I thought he was going to make easier work of Derrick, but if you look at the fight, he absolutely was a no sweat. Like, he dominated this fight through and through. It's just that he didn't get that finish that everybody was expecting him to do what he had done in 5 previous UFC fights. He kind of set these unrealistic expectations where he was just starching everybody, and now all of a sudden he gets one decision and everybody thinks he's just trash. That couldn't be further from the truth, in my opinion. Almeida is a legitimate threat. He never really got tired. He never got hit with the big shot from Derrick Lewis. I wish we could have seen a little bit more of him on the feet because we hadn't got to see that yet now through 6 fights. But when you're facing the all-time leader in knockouts, Derrick Lewis, and your specialty's not necessarily standing, I don't know if that's the fight you want to test out, how you're improving that skill set. Now, in terms of what's next for Almeida, I don't want to see the Ciryl Gane fight, to be quite honest. I want the original booking for UFC Sao Paulo to be booked again. I want Curtis Blades, who has historically, over the past 5 years, since he's been in the UFC, longer than that, I guess, has been known as the best wrestler, grappler in the heavyweight division. Well, now that Jailton Almeida has entered that conversation, that is 100% the fight that should be made next. It will be, at current moment, number 9, Almeida, coming off of this win, undefeated in the UFC, against number 5, Curtis Blades. Do it as a 5-round main event. Do it as a featured bout on a pay-per-view. Whatever the UFC wants to do, that's the fight to make. You have to rebook this fight. It makes even more sense now than it did originally because we didn't see Almeida look unbeatable this time around. Like I've never I've never seen someone look so good but still show me that okay, there are flaws in the game than what happened with Almeida last night. A weird performance, even though it was such a dominant performance. It's a very kind of interesting situation that the community finds themselves in when viewing Almeida, and really how Jailton is going to be viewed now by the brass in the UFC and the rest of the heavyweight division. I think people maybe are coming out of last night, fighters, if you will, in the division, having a little bit more confidence than maybe they would have before this fight. If they were to get matched up with Almeida, you got to pair him with the other best grappler in Curtis Blades and see who can come out on top. You absolutely do. And I feel like that is the matchup where we can potentially get a chance to see, okay, maybe Almeida won't be able to just, ragdoll Curtis Blades. He won't just be able to take him down at will, hold him down at will. Maybe he will have to strike. We've seen Curtis improve in his striking. Yes, he still is on the bad side of knockouts here and there, but we've seen moments. Look at the picture behind me on the wall. He knocked out Chris Dawkins, looked good. It looked sharp in the striking. I would favor Blades in the striking right now over Almeida. I would love to see that fight get made, maybe early first quarter of 2024. I don't know the specifics of the Curtis Blades injury or illness that kept him from this fight, but I'd have to imagine that, early 2024, February, March, April, whatever the case, he could be ready to rock and roll. And that's a big fight, 5 versus 9. Curtis looking to bounce back. Jailton really looking to maybe at this point prove people wrong, because after Saturday in Brazil, there's going to be some more doubters than he had originally. So that's what needs to happen next, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. What is the fight that you want to see next for Jailton Almeida? Do you want to see the fight he called for, Ciryl Gane? Do you want to see the original UFC Sao Paulo booking against Curtis Blades? Or is there someone else you have in mind? And if there is, be sure to let me know. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little quick hitter of the UFC Sao Paulo Brazil main event. Jailton Almeida, big win over Derrick Lewis. Give me all your thoughts on this fight and what you think is next in the comments below. And even for Derrick Lewis, what do you want to see next? He didn't have to take this fight on 3 weeks' notice. He did, because that's what Derrick Lewis does. There's always going to be respect for that man throughout this community, throughout the heavyweight division. He ain't done yet, even at 38 years old. Honestly, submission defense was pretty good last night. I believe Almeida had officially 4 or 5 submission attempts in that fight. Derrick fought them all off. He did a lot better for himself with the grappling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu than I definitely expected going in. So I'm excited to always see Derrick Lewis fight again. I'm sure it'll be relatively soon. So let me know all of your thoughts on the winner and on the loser of the main event. Drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Plenty of content. Going to keep rolling out previews, recaps, breakdowns. Oh, yeah. Big news, fight announcements. You guys get the gist. So, big week coming up. UFC 295, Madison Square Garden. 2 title fights, including the heavyweight interim belt, which is a big deal as we roll into 2024. I'll see you guys later this week.